Welcome to this webinar about modernizing your applications and preparing them for the future. We're leaving no legacy application behind with Cloudhouse and AppVentiX. Let's say goodbye to old software struggles and hello to a seamless digital experience. For today's webinar, I'm joined by Remco Wijnen, who is a staff engineer at Cloudhouse, and I am Ingmar Verheij. I'm a product manager at AppVentiX. Now, if during the webinar you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat pane. We'll answer them at the end of the section, and we'll try to answer as much questions as possible live, so everyone can hear the questions and the answers that we give them. To kick off this first part of the webinar, we're going to switch over to Remco Wijnen from Cloudhouse, who's going to take us through the Cloudhouse portfolio and demonstrate how they leave no app behind while quickly and easily modernizing your applications. Remco, can you share your screen, please?
Yes, here we go. You would think that sharing screens is going to be very easy in 2024, but I'm always struggling with Teams.
So I can see your screen. All you need to do is go to presenter mode and you're good to go.
All right, perfect. I can see some people joining just now, so good. All right, let's start then. Let's kick off. Let's talk about Cloudhouse and especially Cloudhouse Alchemy. Before we do so, let's start with who are we actually? So Cloudhouse is a UK-based software company established in 2010. So we've been doing this for quite some time. We're not just a new kid on the block. And over the years, we've built relations with a lot of companies, and a lot of companies are using our software successfully to get rid of legacy software. Now, lots of people think that application compatibility and legacy software is something that's going away, but actually it's quite an endless market. And as you will see today, I will be demoing with an application that actually initially worked successfully on Windows 10, but it breaks somewhere in Windows 10 versions. So it actually breaks when you're going from Windows 10 to Windows 10. But now that Microsoft has decided to go with new Windows versions, Windows 11, Windows Server is going to get a next version, and security is ever tightening. There's going to be an endless, repeat and loop of application compatibility issues. So far, there have been a number of approaches to modernize your applications, ranging from retire, rehost, refactor, replace. But actually, many people just choose to do nothing. And especially in today's time of malware attacks, you're very vulnerable if you don't do anything and just leave your applications as be. So I think that's where we provide a really good alternative. So without recode, refactor, reducing risk and overhead, we can modernize your application. Now, we will be demoing this, of course, but before we do so, let's have a quick glance at how we do this. So essentially, you can think of Cloudhouse Alchemy as an application compatibility layer consisting of an engine that's able to convert a set of behaviors from one to another. Think of redirection in the sense of files, registry keys, values, but we're also able to do more advanced stuff, such as redirecting drive mappings, server names, IP addresses. This comes combined with an isolation and compatibility layer, as we will see later on. I think the redirection feature is quite unique, and especially if you go from an old environment to a new, especially when you're trying to build a new environment alongside the existing one, the ability to change hard-coded values is unique. In terms of overhead, we're very good. We have less than 1% of CPU overhead. We require very little disk space, a little bit of RAM, And we especially don't have additional infrastructure that you need to deploy. So we don't have an agent, we don't have a management server, we don't have a backing database. So that makes us quite easy to deploy. So as I mentioned, today is mostly demos. That's going to be helpful for me because I'm having a bit of cold and I'm struggling with my voice. And I'm demoing with an application called Enterprise Architect 11, which is a application version that came out a number of years ago. It initially worked on Windows 10, as we will see. This particular demo, I'm installing the application on Windows 10, and I believe it is build 15.11, so it's one of the earlier ones. And the install is pretty simple. We're just following the setup next finish process here. And once we're done, we will launch the application and we will see that it actually works fine on this build of Windows 10. So let's move on to that and actually launch it. As you will see, we can open one of the provided example documents. I'm not sure what to do from here because I'm not an enterprise architect in the sense of a user of this application, but at least it launches without errors. So that's what we'd like to see. That's what makes us happy. Now to demonstrate the issue, we only have to do a Windows upgrade. And I've been doing this on the same VM. And to make it a bit easier, I'm not using Windows Update, but I'm using an ISO-based update because it goes a little bit quicker. Don't worry, I will not bore you in this webinar with 60 minutes of Windows upgrade. So I sped up the video quite a bit. It's just to show you what's happening. So we can see the spinner icon moving very, very quickly. The percentage goes up and up. I wish these updates would always go this quick. And there we go, nearly done. Final reboot, and then we should be good to go. And there we go. And then, of course, we want to see if our application still works after this upgrade. So I've upgraded this to 17.11, but actually the application breaks on any build thereafter, including 22.2, where we're currently on, and Windows 11. You can see that when the document is almost loaded, it just crashes out and it creates a crash dump. Interestingly, if we try to analyze this crash dump, it just shows us a corrupted stack. So it's actually an issue that's not very easy to troubleshoot. Nonetheless, I'm giving it a go here with the built-in compatibility settings. Interestingly, it's asking me what's the last Windows version it worked on, and I can only select Windows 8. I can't select like it worked on Windows 10 before. And it doesn't really matter what settings I try here. None of them are going to make it work. But just for the purpose of it, I'm selecting to run it with additional writes. Unfortunately, none of that helps us. It's just elevating, but still crashing. So therefore, at least we know it's not a permissions issue. So let's see how we can fix this with Cloudhouse then. In this first demo, I'm going to create an Alchemy package. We have two ways of creating packages. One of them is reverse packaging, where we do not have source media. The first demo is the more traditional method of snapshotting an installation and creating a package from the diff. The package is quite quick. We're selecting a working folder, and I'm using Start Capture to create a baseline snapshot of the machine. This will record the current state of the file system, registry, and so on. Then we will obviously install the application, and we will do a diff against it, which will result in a Cloudhouse package. At this point, the baseline has been captured, so we can click Next and then start the installation. Now, if you think this all looks very similar to other packaging applications, then you're quite right, it does. So at this point, we've recorded the installation, and we can click Next to run the application. This is a special phase where we can launch the application and track any runtime initialization that might happen. For example, think about a reporting component that's only installed when you actually generate a report, and we will capture those in the package as well. For this application, nothing exciting happens at first launch, so we can just go ahead and complete our capture. Will typically take a number of minutes to run through the capture. It depends a little bit, of course, on the size of your image and the speed of your machine. But it's relatively quick. There we go, the package is finished. It shows us the captured files, so we can do some checks, and if we wanted to, we can either leave out or include specific folders. In this demo, I'm just accepting the default that comes out, and I'm going to give the package a name, Enterprise Architect 11 in this case. And it will be automatically assigned an application ID. So this is the final step where we actually will output the package. And there we go. Package done. And if we look at the file system, we will see that we have in the package folder a number of files, such as the snapshot that we made. This is helpful if we want to make changes to the package later on, but we can pick up the package from there and deploy it to a machine. So let's see how that goes. I've prepared another Windows 10 machine. In this case, it's a version 22H2. And just to show you that the original application doesn't work, we will do a native install first. And we will launch it and confirm that Microsoft hasn't fixed it in between the two versions. So let's go ahead and launch it. And let's attempt to open the document. And just when we think it's going to open, it's actually crashing. So let's deploy the Cloudhouse package alongside the native one. And just to avoid confusion, I'm renaming the desktop shortcut to native so that we know for sure which one we are launching. I've copied the package to the temp folder, and from there we can deploy using our deployment tool. We will see later on there are other ways to do this with AppVentiX, for example. But for now, we will just deploy it using our native deployment tool to confirm that the application is actually working once it's packaged with Cloudhouse Alchemy. Deployment is actually pretty quick. The video hasn't been fast forwarded or anything. Obviously, it depends a little bit on the size of your application. So we will again launch the application and attempt to open the default document, which is the example one. And there it opens in all glory. Now, a question that gets asked often is, what if we don't have install media, or we have an installed application, but we do not know exactly how it is configured? Well, for that scenario, we have something called reverse packaging. And reverse packaging is a way to extract an installed application from a running machine. And in this process, I've created a folder reverse package to do our reverse packaging in. And there is a JSON configuration file in there, and we need to fill this with something pointing to the application later on. But firstly, we will do a system scan, which creates an initial baseline of the machine. And once that's done, we can input the path to the application. And then we will do a discovery from there on. So we will attempt to discover directories that belong to the application, registry keys, services, and all the dependencies of the application. In this first phase, we will do a registry scan, and a file system scan. And from there, we can move to the reverse packaging tool. We should be nearly there. And we're done. Now we will open the JSON configuration file that I mentioned before. And we will open it. And in the paths to filter, we will enter something pointing to the application. In this case, I'm taking the directory from the desktop shortcut. And because this is JSON, we will need to use double backslashes because backslash is an escape character. I will just take the root directory Spark system in this case. And then we will start the reverse packaging tool. I will point this to my reverse package folder. Now, at this point, we will do a discovery on the machine and see what files, registry keys, shortcuts, environment variables, services, and other dependencies belong to the application. I sped this discovery up a little bit. It's running at a double speed in the video, so it actually isn't too bad, but for the purposes of this webinar, I didn't want to make it too long. It has now saved the files that we need to package. And if we want to, we can browse through the things that it has discovered and make changes if required. So for example, we can see here that it's discovered not only the root directory that I gave in, but also some dependencies that are installed in common files. It has also discovered registry keys belonging to the application. And we do this based on a number of things such as keywords. We've discovered the shortcuts in the start menu and the desktop. There were not any environment variables belonging to the application in this case. And by this time we're done. The next step would be to create a package using our command line packaging tool, but obviously it will result in a similar package as the one that we created before. Now, the last step that we need for today is create an MSIX package. And this is actually very straightforward. You can download the MSIX packaging tool from Microsoft and just use the default option, create a package. I will go with the recommendation to disable Windows Search. And as the installer, we can point to the deployment tool that we saw earlier. And then we give it the correct command line options to install, which are in this case, accept our end user licensing agreement, specify a directory where you want to deploy the application to, and give it the deploy type. The MSI packaging tool works best by discovering applications installed into program files or program files x86. So that's what I'm doing in this case. But there is an option in the tool to specify if you're using a different path. In this case, I'm selecting the do not sign package option, as that is something that AppVentiX can handle for me. But we will need to give it a name, and we will need to give it some other properties in the package. So in this case, I'm just going with the default names and some nice display names. The publisher field, if you've not worked with the packaging tool, is important. It must match with whatever is in the certificate that you want to sign with when you're done. That's why I'm copy pasting it here. We need to give it a version and a description, and then we're pretty much good to go. As you can see, the packaging tool is now running our deployment tool, and it will then capture the changes that our tool makes into an MSIX package. It will fetch the entry points, and the packaging tool has a similar functionality as we do to be able to capture any post-installation tasks. We've already done that, taken care of, so not required here. And then the final step is to output the MSIX package, in this case to the desktop folder. And that's it, we're done. And with that, I will pass control back to Ingmar.
Thank you, Remco. Again, this is just super insightful, seeing what you deliver, seeing the product that you do, and also the reverse packaging. I mean, there's so many clients that simply doesn't know where that install media is or how it has been installed. So I think this is very useful for the audience that we share. By the way, you told me earlier, like you do DOS applications, Windows 16-bit applications, Java runtime applications. Is that correct? You can package anything?
Yeah, it's quite insane, the stuff that we sometimes still see. But yes, indeed, we've done DOS applications, we've done 16-bit applications that we can then deploy to 64-bit Windows, which I think is quite unique. But for today, I thought it was interesting to show that even more modern applications can easily break between different Windows versions or even different versions of the same Windows.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it is insane. It's great to see that, application compatibility, it's still needed, but also that there is an answer, right? If applications break, there's an answer. You can make them work if that's what your organization needs. And with that, we're helping our customers move their entire application estate to a modern workplace, as promised, leaving no legacy app behind. Was the intent of the webinar. To introduce AppVentiX. AppVentiX is a Dutch startup in the application management space. It was founded in 2014 as FB Scheduler, so we're celebrating 10 years of existence. And the goal was, solving a problem as simple and elegant as possible. Early on, we did recognize MSIX is the future of Windows application distribution. So we included support for both native MSAX and AppVentiX. And today, well, AppVentiX is the simplest and most powerful tool for real-time application distribution and management. So we make it just super simple, deploying and updating Microsoft application packages in your environment. It's powerful, but it's very lightweight, as you've just seen with Cloudhouse. Like the impact is just minimal. It's just super simple deploying AppV MSAX in your organization. And we also provide visual app masking management. So the Avast Logix app masking, comes in handy as well, all from one single management console. So it's just very useful. So we've just seen, a demonstration of the modernization of a legacy application, or legacy, was built on for Windows 10 using Cloudhouse technology. But once you've transformed that application into an MSAX package, AppVentiX can help you start delivering them to your users, because of course that's an important step as well. Now, during this transitioning, you might run into a mixed environment with maybe legacy AppV and modern MSAX packages. With AppVentiX, that's super simple as well, and it's transparent for your users, because we can deploy AppV and MSAX side by side, making that gradual transition at your own pace. And we can deploy the applications to physical endpoints. So yes, to your modern Windows 11 workspace. We can deploy to your somewhat older builds of Windows 10, also traditional Windows 7, but also, VDI, SBC, cloud desktops, basically any flavor that we come across that just works. So far, we did not find an environment where we were not able to deploy applications. So I'm sure this is going to fit your environment as well. Now, the access to the applications is granular, so you can limit the access to the application typically based on a group of users, sometimes even up to a single specific user if that's required. So it's just super simple in deploying those applications throughout your organization, all from one unified application management console. Now, we also support a wide range, from the platforms. Microsoft, of course, is AVD, Windows 365 Cloud PC, RDS if you still use that for the on-prem config, Citrix as well. So all the modern deployments, of course, in the cloud, also the more traditional on-prem VDI and SBC configurations. We fully support that. VMware, and again, the physical endpoints. So for identity and access, of course, very important, not only for the agent to be configured, run on the right host and have access to the configuration and the packages, but also for mapping the identity, providing access. We support on-prem AD. We also support, the modern Entra ID, or, the artist formerly known as Azure Active Directory. And typically we see that we run in a hybrid configuration if you're moving to AVD or something else with Azure. If you are running in a full Entra ID configuration, there's no need for a line of sight with the domain controller. So you can just fully use it on Entra ID if that's what you need. Again, typically we see the hybrid mode where it's both AD joined and Entra ID enabled. So you've probably heard the term MSAX a couple of times now. Remco showed it in a demo. I called it a couple of times. And perhaps you're not that familiar yet with MSAX. It is the new Microsoft standard for delivering Windows applications, as it comes with a unique set of advantages. And this is why you'll see that some core Microsoft applications, like Microsoft Teams, are now offered as an MSAX package. At its core, it's a native Microsoft application format. There's no need for any proprietary technology when you're using this technology. So you're not bound to a subscription or a third-party software vendor to launch your applications. It makes the application portable, right? So it's one container, super simple to deploy, to upgrade, replace, and also to remove, right? So to clean up, it's just very, very clean. Installations are reliable, and therefore, those clean installs are guaranteed. And since processes are isolated, both your interoperability and the security is increased because everything runs in that context of this one container. Also interesting that, many of the applications you found today in the Microsoft Store, these are already MSAX applications, right? So that demonstrates the robustness of the format and also the future of this package, where Microsoft is committing to MSAX. And by the way, if you're still deploying your applications with AV, as many enterprises do, MSX is the best alternative Microsoft's going to provide you, simply because it's basically built on top of those core technologies and experiences that they've built with AppV throughout the years. And MSX is really the evolution, or perhaps even the revolution, for that. Keep in mind, end of life of AppV, it has been announced quite some time ago. It has been changed quite a couple of times as well. Today it's May 2026 that the end of life is. That might sound far away, but I guess we all know that these transitions do take time. If you have an organization deploying on AppV, then today is the time really to start looking into how to switch to a different delivery mechanism. Now, this is something that I wanted to show you as well. This is really new, not the Microsoft Store. We've seen this. This is Microsoft digital distribution platform. It's been run by Microsoft, and it was basically created as an app store for Windows 8. So as the primary means of distributing the Universal Windows Platform apps, or UWP. And now you'll find it basically in any modern Windows operating system, and it contains a vast amount of both consumer and business applications. And customers told us that they'd like to distribute applications basically from the Microsoft Store to their users with the same tool that they distribute their line of business applications. So with the latest release of AppVentiX, we introduced a new feature that allows you to extract those MSX applications from the Microsoft Store and then make them part of your managed content repository. And once these packages are available in that content repository, basically they are treated like your line of business apps. So it allows you to deploy the apps from the Microsoft Store alongside your other applications. And now you can simply deploy those business apps like Microsoft Whiteboard, Power BI, or consumer applications like WhatsApp to your users. No need to package them. They're already there, provided by Microsoft. So that's super simple. So enough of the talking. I'm gonna show you the product. Unlike Remco, I did not record this in video, so I'm relying on some of the demo gods to actually start working, hopefully showing you the product as it should be. Now, this is on the Windows 11 build 22 H2, right? So it's the fairly modern release, and I actually received the package from Remco. So I'm going to deploy the Enterprise Architect application that Remco just showed us. Now, this is a fairly vanilla setup, right? There's not a lot of things installed. It's AppVentiX, some tooling. You can see there's no Enterprise Architect here. There's no Power BI, there's no WhatsApp, no nothing. So it's just really straightforward. And in this demonstration, I'm going to show you how simple it is and how straightforward it is to deploy those applications. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to show you AppVentiX. We're going to start with basically the manage machine section. This is where you manage your agents, the machines where you are going to deploy your applications to, right? I've selected my AppVentiX demo machine, which I'm on today. So the same machine where I have my console installed. I'm going to show you which applications are installed. I'm going to deploy it here. So if I'm going to do a user inventory, we're going to see that there's only one app assigned, which is our own refresh application. Nothing else. This is just very straightforward, right? So there's not a lot happening yet. But what I want to going to do is take the application that Remco just created, built with Cloudhouse, and add that to my content repository. If we see here now, there's a bunch of test applications that we use. Enterprise Architect is not yet part of that. So all we have to do is I'm going to take the package that Remco sent me. I'm going to put it in a nice folder for Enterprise Architect. I'm going to upload it here, and that's all we need. By the way, for requirements for AppVentiX, very minimal. So overhead is minimal, especially on infrastructure. Essentially, all we need is a file share, right? So it's going to be your traditional Microsoft file share that can be a distributed file share if you have it, Nutanix, NetApp, or a Azure file share. So both cloud and on-prem, everything is supported there. So all we do is make sure that the file is stored on the content repository. Going to do a refresh, and you can see that it's automatically picked up here. It's now part of the managed content repository here. What I'd like to do is deploy this application to my machine. And in order to do that, all I need to do is create a publishing task. in that publishing task, I'm going to basically configure like, hey, what is it that you need to do? Who needs to access this application and how to deal with some of the specifics. We're going to keep it very simple, straightforward. I'm going to take a simple application group. So some of my users are part of this. I'm going to limit it. So instead of deploying this to all my machines, I'm going to limit it to only my Azure AD machines. So I don't want to deploy this to my FAT clients. I don't want to deploy this to my Citrix machines, only Azure AD. And for the rest, let's just keep it simple and keep it at that. So I'm going to add save the publishing task. And all I need to do is wait until the agent picks this up. By default, we're configuring this to be, whenever you log on, that's when we pick up the latest config and we're going to add the application. But of course, we can expedite the process. So I'm going to click on refresh applications. And basically what that does is, the agent's going to look at the configuration, see if there's an application publishing task available for him, and it's going to pick things up. Now, if we look in the start menu, we can see that Enterprise Architect is here. Same application that you just saw from Remco. We can launch it. I don't know in detail how the application works, just like Remco. So let's assume it's going to work and that's all we need to do here. And it's launching. So this is something, the refresh is something you can do from the client side. So typically, when you are deploying an application to your users and, they're in a hurry, they can refresh themselves, or perhaps during a troubleshooting section, this is something you can do from the client side, but there's a whole managed section here. So typically what we do is, we can explore, see the details of this machine. We can see what packages are staged here. We can see which applications are available. And if needed, we have a big blue icon here, invoke refresh cycle. And basically that's going to trigger the agent into picking up the latest configuration. So it's really, near real time. If you need to make any changes to your applications, if you need to revoke an application, that can happen nearly instantaneously. It's nearly real time. And it's just, you've just seen, it's so simple. Just adding an MSAX to a folder, making a publishing task, narrow it down to a specific machine group. This can be, for A/B testing. This can be for cloud and on-prem, and then the users that needs to have access. So distribution, super simple. We've seen that it's there. Sometimes we want to do a bit more with that application, especially when we're testing. So there's also a AppVentiX agent GUI or UI. This is available to your users. If you'd like, you can remove it. But any user basically can see what applications are in here. So these are the two applications that we've published. Part of that is the Enterprise Architect application. What's really nice about this is that you can do some troubleshooting yourself, or the user even, without actually needing, to dig in all that deep, especially since this is a container. So you can see, the package details, you can see the version, you can see all the publishing information that you just saw from Remco. You can even browse the entire folder, right? So you can see the manifest file, which contains basically the configuration of the package. And you can browse the virtual file system, everything is available. And since this lives in a container, sometimes it's very useful to, launch a command prompt or a PowerShell inside the container, right? Because outside of the container, this doesn't exist. If we go to the folder that we've just created, and I should remember the name of this folder. I don't know what the name of the folder is. Enterprise Architect, there it is. You can see it's here within the container. You can see the files. If we would repeat this outside of the container, that doesn't exist. Again, very useful in troubleshooting. You can see the file system. You can see the registry from the container. But also, what typically is sometimes needed, the user made changes to the configuration. These are stored in your profile, but perhaps changes are made that they cannot undo. They change it to a language that they don't read. Perhaps, this is an English user and the application is configured into Korean or Chinese, and, they don't know how to deal with this. Very simple repair button, and they can take it from there. So there's a lot of troubleshooting things that you can do immediately from this agent, which are going to make it a lot easier to deploy all those applications to your end users. So I'm going to switch back to the AppVentiX console, and I can show you a couple of other really interesting capabilities here. By default, what Remco showed us is, hey, this is an MSX container. So the great thing about MSX containers, as I've just shown you, it's portable, it's very easy to distribute, and it's very simple to, because it runs in a container. There's also a concept called AppAttach. And basically AppAttach is still, part of MSAX, but instead of being a file, with extension .msax, it is a disk format, right? It's a disk image, and it uses, VHD, VHDX, or the later SIM disk format. We make it very simple, not only to do a conversion, which typically otherwise would require you to use PowerShell, but with a single, I should have run this differently. With a single click, we can help you transform this MSX application into a AppAttach container. We do require you to be an admin, as you saw here in the message, because we are going to do interactions with the disk system. So we're going to relaunch it as an admin, and we're going to transform this application from a native MSX application into a AppAttach application. So while it is doing this, there we go. First thing that I'm going to do is make sure that the application, which is this one here, that the application is removed, right? So currently it's deployed. It is deployed as a native MSX application. Just to avoid that, we have clashing, conflicting applications. We're going to remove this, invoke a refresh, make sure that Enterprise Architect is no longer available. Clean and install, that's the benefit of using MSAX. So we're going to select the MSAX, going to say convert to AppAttach. Again, straightforward, not a lot of questions. Going to keep it to the default, just make a VHDX application. Going to click continue. And what it's going to do in the background is basically automate the entire process for you. So it's going to mount this MSAX package. It's going to store this into a VHDX, and then make it available as an AppAttach application. We're moving the MSX application to a temporary folder, so it's no longer being used, but we will retain it for you, right? So the file is still there, you can still use it. And after that, we've converted this to an AppAttach file. So it's now converted. Super simple. You can see here, now it's an AppAttach. It's no longer a package, it's an AppAttach. And I'd like to deploy this as a AppAttach application to my machine. Proof isn't eating the pudding. So I want to show you the before state, so you can see that things are actually working here. If I go to disk management, you can see I have two disks. Well, a disk and a CD-ROM. It's virtual. Who still uses these things, but that's all there is. So Enterprise Architect, I'm going to again publish this application, but this time it's going to be an AppAttach package. Same group, just the Azure AD machines. By the way, you see here a checkbox here. When you are using this either on Citrix or an AVD or VMware, and you're not using full-blown desktops, but you're using published applications or seamless applications, remote apps, same. We can help you publish that for you as well. So if you've configured AVD, you can add the application here, and we're going to create that remote app for you. So it's super simple. Again, one of those tasks that you don't need to do manually. We're going to help you achieve that very simply. So now we're going to do a quick refresh. And what's going to happen in the background, hopefully, is that it's going to deploy the application as a AppAttach. I think my demo is going to fail. If it does, I'm going to show you why that is. I'm pretty sure this is going to fail. So while I'm talking, the reason this is going to fail is I just deployed this as an Enterprise Architect application. You can see it's here. I actually have two now. And I'm going to remove this. And then we're going to do a new refresh cycle. I deployed this as a native MSX application. And when we remove a publishing task, basically that's just removing it for the user. And it's going to remain staged or cached or whatever you want to call it on that specific machine, so that if another user comes in and it has access to the application, instantaneously, it's available. And typically, you don't do a live migration from native MSAX to AppVentiX in a live environment. So this is why this is not a very common scenario, except when you demo this quite often. So I should have done this. I should have prepared this. Gonna do a new refresh. You can see currently only a stage here is not the Enterprise Architect application that you've just seen. What we do see here now, a few seconds later, I have a new disk 1. Unfortunately, it doesn't show you, that this is a AppVentiX application. There's just a new disk magically added here. Probably should see Enterprise Architect. Yep, there it is. And if I'm going to do a new inventory on the machine level, we're going to see here an application called Enterprise Architect, and indeed it has AppVentiX checked. So this is why this is just, very transparent. So if you're going to mix and match native MSAX and AppVentiX, maybe you're going to mix AppV and MSAX. For the end user, they really should not care. It's just an app. It just works. Same goes for native versus MSAX. There's an app in the start menu. That's all they care about, and that's all they should care about. Now, one last thing I wanted to show you here. And by the way, maybe you have not realized just yet, I've just shown you AppVentiX. This is a, standalone Windows 11 machine. This is not an AVD machine. This is not running in Azure at all. This is just running on my my Mac Mini here. So this is just a local device. So, AppVentiX is actually, you can use it wherever you'd like to, because it's just baked into the OS. I just mentioned the Microsoft Store integration. So we can now import applications from the Microsoft Store. Still says Windows Store here. It's called Microsoft Store. And it's really simple. Basically, all that we need is you're going to open the store at .microsoft.com. Apps, Microsoft Apps. There you go. And what we need is the application that we want to import. So typically what we see is, a combination of, hey, I want to deploy WhatsApp to my users, but also a bit more, business applications like, Microsoft already published Power BI. There's a Microsoft Whiteboard application. I'd like to deploy this to my users without the need of packaging this, because that's just costly. For now, this is an experimental feature. All we need is this ID, and when we're asking you to paste this, in here. Click on search, and then it's going to show you which packages it needs. Since this is an MSX package running into the Microsoft Store, it's going to tell you there's a package. It also has dependencies. We're going to help you identify them and help you import them immediately. Now, since this is a live demo and I do not have the ability to speed up the video, which Remco had, I already basically did this. So I have Power BI here. If I double click, you can see, this is the application, this is the version. These are the dependencies. So they're already linked. And again, same as with the Enterprise Architect application, super simple. If you want to deploy this application from the Microsoft Store to our users, all we need to do is define the group that has access, or perhaps even a user in a publishing task. Do a refresh, either by the user or perhaps by the admin from the console. And within a few seconds, we should be able to see that Microsoft Power BI, here it is, Power BI is now added. So it's really super simple, really straightforward, very lean. So it's just, that's basically all. This is what we do at AppVentiX. I don't want to say it's all. We do a lot of great things. One last thing, import from AppVentiX, a few test applications that you'll find here. We're going to expand this. So we have a test application if you start using this. And there's the refresh application. So if you want to provide that to your users, it's just there. So it's ready for at your disposal. Now, let's see if there were any questions came in, Remco. Were you checking the question pane perhaps already? I'm going to open it up as well.
Yeah, there is. First question is, are there benefits of using AppVentiX over MSIX?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. There's a lot of confusion around these two, honestly. So AppVentiX is basically a different flavor of MSIX. So in essence, it's the same. It's just a different delivery mechanism. I guess the biggest advantage that you will get with AppVentiX is that you need less disk space, because it's a disk being mounted over the network. So you don't need the disk space on your session host. So typically we see this in AVD or Citrix or VMware, when you have multiple users on the same session host. Downside is, you need that connectivity, and you really rely on the latency and the availability of that disk. So it works best in those configurations. Benefit of a native MSX is that it's being cached on the device. It's more portable. We actually see quite a bit of AVD customers just use native MSX and cache this on the session host. But either way, both are great. And you can mix and match them. So pick them at your best advantage. And I've just seen AppVentiX. It's not just restricted to AVD. You can use it in basically any environment that you from Windows 10 and up that you can use this. Let's see. I also see a good question.
There's a related question. Do I need Azure Virtual Desktop to use AppVentiX?
Well, no, you don't. It is only being advocated for AVD, and I would say, it's only implemented into the Azure portal, right? So Azure portal is the way you manage your AVD, and this is where you'll see, hey, if you want to deploy your applications, there's AppVentiX. But it's a universal functionality. But in order to manage this, it's only Azure portal. With AppVentiX, we can also deploy to your on-prem or your laptop, even if you'd like. Yeah. So yeah, good question.
Yeah, I see one that's related to Cloudhouse, so I'll take that one. Do you also support server apps? Great question. Yeah, in fact, we support both desktop and server apps. So desktop apps is like what I've shown today, Enterprise Architect, but we also support packaging, things like SQL Server, Oracle, or other more server applications. So yes, we do support both.
Oh, excellent. I actually see another one coming for Cloudhouse. So when a new OS comes out, like whatever that next release is going to be, Windows 12 or Windows X, do they have to package all the applications again when that comes out?
Yeah, good question. No, you do not. We actually guarantee that they will run on both current and future versions. So if the next version of Windows come out, be it server or desktop OS, we will make sure that your existing packages will run on those operating system. Hence why we're calling them evergreen. And in fact, once we've created an application package, it will run on different types of OS. So for example, if there is an app that you want to run both on server and desktop OS, for example, when you're running Citrix or RDSH, you can do that with a single package. Or if you need to support multiple versions of Windows, say that you have Windows 10 and 11, that will all work with the same package.
Nice. That's good to know. Yeah. I see one actually on, I think this is related to your demo somewhat, but it's about AppVentiX. How do I deal with the complexity of certificates that are involved with MSX? I mean, there's whenever you see certificates, there's always a level of complexity because you need to code sign your certificates, your MSX packages with a certificate. I guess that complexity really depends on the kind of signing certificate that you use. If you have like a certificate that's being issued by one of the bigger vendors, then it's automatically being trusted. There's your chain is already trusted. We see a lot of customers either using a domain issued code signing certificate, and then distribution typically happens by the Active Directory. They'll deploy the code signing certificates. We also see a lot of customers using self-sign, and that's fine as well. And this is where AppVentiX comes in. You can just add that code signing certificate. So the public part, of course, not with the private key, just the public key. If you make that part of the content repository, then we'll make sure that all the agents that deploy those packages that need the code signing certificate, that it has it in their certificate authorities or their certificate store. It has a better name for that. But that's what I mean. So yeah, so you don't have to deal with a lot of that complexity. We'll take care of that for you.
There's another question, Ingmar. Could AppVentiX replace Microsoft Intune or the Azure portal?
Yeah, good question. So I guess so for the Azure portal, for the AppVentiX part, yeah, absolutely. There is an implementation for AppVentiX in the Azure portal. we've just seen an update, so it's getting better. Don't want to say it's up to the level where I'd like it to be for an enterprise. But yeah, and actually you cannot deploy native MSAX with Azure Portal, just AppVentiX. So yeah, it's definitely beneficial if you're using AVD to have it like AppVentiX. Same goes for Intune. Intune really is, at its best, it's, the best feature is for device management, configuring the policies, the settings, all that, and, keeping that thing secure and compliant. For application deployment, it works as well. But there are some limitations in, let's say, the MSAX implementation. So, whether that's around clean uninstall or versioning or real-time deployment, it is still based on SCCM. So sometimes there's a lot of waiting involved in getting a replication. So yeah, definitely, it doesn't replace Intune like at all, unless you only use Intune to deploy your applications. But yeah, it's definitely it's a good complementary product. So if you're using Intune for deploying your applications, then highly recommend it. You've seen it, super simple. It's not a lot of cost involved, and I'm saying this in all honesty. I definitely recommend looking at AppVentiX as well when you're using Intune for application deployment. I see a great question for you, Remco, for Cloudhouse. Did you ever come across an application compatibility issue you were unable to solve?
Yeah,
I don't think so. I've never seen you fail with those things.
I love that question. No, not yet. I mean, any application that we've dealt with, we've been able to deliver. We do have a few limitations. The most important one is we can't virtualize device drivers.
Yep.
But in many cases, there is still a way to get it all working. And in fact, if you engage with our professional services team, we give you a success guarantee. Mm-hmm. So we're very, very confident that we can make even the worst application work.
Yeah. Well, so that does sound interesting, and I already see some, use cases in the clients that I'm facing as well. I don't see any other sessions coming in, so I think this is a good time to start wrapping up the webinar for today. Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for joining today, taking the time out of their busy schedule for listening to this webinar for Remco, for Cloudhouse, and myself for AppVentiX. Remco, thank you for joining as well. I've learned a lot, so I think the rest of the audience has learned a lot as well. And with that, we're gonna close the webinar, and we're gonna, post the recording probably next week for you all out there. So thanks, cheers, and see you soon.
Thanks everyone for joining.